I think they're just one of those teams that, I mean, they're so similar to TCU where, I mean, they just had a great fight against West Virginia. I even saw their coach's interview just put out there of their fight. I mean, even when we were up by a lot in the fourth quarter, they were still fighting. They were still taking it to the basket, things like that. We've had some key defensive things that we've been working on this week just to be prepared for, and just things. I think we've gotten better defensively since then, whether it be guarding our yard, whether we're kind of in gap support and things like that. I think we did a great job against Iowa State the second time defensively, and I think just trying to carry over those certain things, and we've been doing that in practice this week, like trying to keep that energy that we had at Iowa State to carry on to these other teams that are so big on dribble drive and things like that.
You've had plenty of quick turnarounds in your career, where you've had this Saturday, Monday kind of thing. How do you approach that?
One game at a time, one day at a time. We're not worried about UT right now. We need to go in tomorrow. We need to come in today, practice as hard as we can, work on what we need to work on, go in tomorrow, get a win, and then as soon as that game ends, we'll watch film on UT and we'll move forward with it. But it's definitely a one day at a time for us because teams get caught up so much. I mean, looking to the next game, doing things like that, and all of a sudden you get beat by a team, by a team that, oh, yeah, we got this. When I think the Big 12 Conference is incredible. I think every night someone can get beat. I don't think it's any oh, yeah, they're just going to win it all. That's just not how it's been for the past few years. I think everyone comes in. I mean, you saw it with OSU just being Iowa State. You saw OSU and Texas Tech get into triple overtime. The games are just so much more intense and to the wire right now.
Kevin, you as someone who you haven't experienced a season like this where it's this late in the season, you guys aren't in contention for the Big 12 regular season title. How do you deal with that? And kind of, does it feel different when you're not in that area, or does it feel the same thing where you're still focused on the postseason?
Still focused. I don't think, obviously, I think a lot of things have hit us this year where, we haven't met certain goals. We haven't played how we've wanted to play or how we expected. We haven't met our level of success that we wanted to, but it hasn't stopped us. It's not like we're sitting here oh, no, we can't do this now, we can't do that. No. We still have 3 more games in regular season. We can still win a Big 12 championship at the tournament. We could still go to the NCAA tournament and surprise people or, go in as that underdog standpoint. So that's not something we're worried about. We just are worried about the next game ahead of us.
Is there still a confidence level? I mean, you guys you said losing sucks. You went through the 4 games. Is there still a confidence level among y'all? Yeah.
I think our coaches have done a great job at coming in and, I mean, after the Iowa State game, that's such a tough loss, because we really, tremendously, I think that was probably our best defense of the entire year, at least that I can think back of, maybe Villanova, but just comparably such great effort. We made such strides to just continue to play, you're so close, you go into another OT, you go into, more time that you've just got to mentally lock in, and I think after that it wasn't we came in the next day and Coach Nicki and them made sure they were okay, here's what we did great, here's what we need to work on, let's move forward, don't dwell on it, next step. So I think we still have incredible confidence. I think it's just being mentally locked in and just believing that we can do it every day.
Caitlin, this might be a better question for next week, but you've got 2 games left in the Farrell Center. Thought about that much or any yet?
Yes, I've thought about it. It kind of just hit me today, actually. I was just kind of sitting there, and I was like, oh, shoot. I have 8 days until, senior night. Yeah. I don't want to keep talking because I'm going to cry. But, yeah, sorry. I'm going to cry if I continue to talk about it.
Sorry.
You're good.
But it's meaningful, right?
For sure. 5 years feels like a lifetime, so.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, guys.
Last couple days.
I don't think we ever had really bad attitudes. Right. I know I said this after the game, and I really mean it. when you watch TCU warm up, when you watch them in games, when you watch their interaction, you would never know that like they had lost 13 conference games in a row. I think it's somewhat how you lead, and do you get the players that affect the energy of practice the most to buy into, hey, yeah, we're none of us are happy. You know, no one likes losing, but how are we going to win the next one if we don't show up to be ready to prepare for the next one? And so I think the challenge for us going into TCU was, you know, I mean, Jaden's been nursing her shin all season, and Sarah's out with illness, Jana's out with illness, and I've got Caitlin Bickle running the point. You know, and Jamie would have done it. I just feel like Caitlin probably knows the plays better than anyone, including our point guards. And I wanted Jamie to play her natural position because I just think that's better for her. When I flip-flop Caitlin from one position to the next, I don't worry that she's going to miss reps at the 4 and 5 because she's running the point. But, you know, when that's what you're resorting to for preparation, when you know it's probably not going to happen, you know, like you're just doing your best to like keep them in a place where they're trying to focus on what do we have to do to beat TCU. But I think practice has been good the last 2 days. I still think this time of year you're trying to get in and out. You're trying to be efficient with your practice time. You're playing everyone for the second time, so it's more review. We're spending a little more time, less time in practice, more time making sure we're still getting some individual workouts in with players so they're getting more shots up. And, you know, we even yesterday after practice we finished early, but, you know, Bugs and Bella and Kyla all, you know, did extra shooting, high-low stuff. You know, we've had opportunities to be pretty good high-low, and we're just not good at it, you know, yet. And so, not that we ever run like just a true high-low, but anytime you're in horns, anytime you're in our ball screen offense and teams are switching, the last 2 opponents we've played, or 2 of the last 3, have switched a lot of our ball screens. So now, as soon as you get that switch, are you prepared to take advantage of it? Now you're not posting Bella up on Cravens, you're posting her up on Fisher, and that's a huge difference. And so those are the post-up mismatches like we got to own. We know we're not this like big, strong post-up team, but we should be able to post Bella up on a 5'7" point guard.
Coach, everyone feeling good in terms of health-wise, sickness-wise?
Yeah, I mean we're as close as we've been, you know. To I think we had, you know, Dre's obviously still limited, but and with Asia out, but yeah, I think we actually had 11 players practice yesterday, so and 10 consistently.
Nicki, Texas Tech obviously was one of your better games, I thought. 79 points on the road in front of, 8,000 people. My question is, how did Jaden get 16 points in that game? And she obviously doesn't look to score that often. What was the difference in that game than others?
Yeah, I mean, I thought there were a couple things. One of the stretches that she scored more, Sarah was out in foul trouble. And, you know, she'd picked up a foul and a technical, and so it's kind of come sit down for a while moment. You know, but so I think some of it was that, but I think a lot of it was just our tempo. A lot of her baskets were in transition. Not all of them, but most of them. Most of her baskets were, you know, and they, I thought not only was she good in terms of, you know, getting some layups. She got a layup off horns. She got a layup in transition, hit a couple jump shots. But she put a lot of pressure on the D by getting paint touches in transition and got us a lot of open shots. We didn't make them all, but we got a ton of wide open looks in transition. And I just think that's a place that we should take advantage, you know, in this matchup. Certain teams we play, OU is going to be significantly faster and score in the first 8 seconds as well. You know, Texas Tech is kind of a set-driven team that tends to score in that middle half of the possession towards the late end. You know, they have a lot of long developing plays. You Part A, Part B, and Part C. We don't have many plays that go past Part A. And so, I just think for us, it's just something that, especially against them, that we did a good job of there and need to continue to do a good job of.
Coach, what makes them tough to play against? It seemed kind of scrappy. I know the way, especially the way they won against West Virginia the other day.
Yeah, I think they have a really good combination of young, energetic players, and then the fifth-year types. I mean, Breamber Scott is a mismatch for everybody in this league. I mean, she's a guard that plays the post, but she's physical enough to bang. They can. The unique thing about them is they'll have a 5-guard lineup, and then they'll sub in 2 bigs, and they'll go from like a stretch you out, 5-out dribble drive sets to create space into driving lanes to all of a sudden big, strong posts where they're going to pound it inside and play high-low basketball and try to overload you and put it inside. And so they just kind of over the course, they can look very different in 4-minute segments, 5-minute segments. And so, they're a team that can, we're always going to be small. I mean, there's no lineups I can play where all of a sudden we're like really, really big. They can truly mix it up. And so you have to be, every time they sub, you're trying to figure out, is Breamber a 4? Is she a 3? Is Katie Farrell, what position is she right now? So they have a lot of hybrid players. And offensively, they have a lot. It's by far our thickest scouting report because of the number of plays that they run against man. But they move people around, so, all of a sudden you've got Bugs going off a stagger screen where normally that's not something that she has to do. And so their parts are all interchangeable one time. And so it's pretty impressive sometimes to me to think that they have 4 or 5 kids that can run every position on the floor in these long developing plays. And one time they're on the wing and the next time they start in the post. And, it's, for the most part, I'm just happy if I have 5 players that know one spot and can run the play where I want them to run the play from, let alone if all of a sudden I said, all right, everybody, run around in a circle, and then wherever you end up, run the play from that spot. And it looks a little bit like it's pretty impressive. So I think they're really kind of a high execution team offensively.
You say they're a high offensive team, but they're one of the few teams I've looked at the stats where they have more turnovers than assists.
Yeah, and I think that comes to sometimes so when I say execution, and this is always we think of it's easy to turn the ball over if you're playing too fast and you're out of control and things like that. But a lot of times when you're a team with slow developing stuff and they're not necessarily a team with a ton of playmakers, so they need those plays. They need to screen well. And at times they do, but if you guard their stuff well, and now it comes down to, is Breamber going to go make a play? I mean, they, and I think to me, we've been way too high a turnover team this year. I just think when you look at some of what our turnovers are, we have a ton of dead ball turnovers. We set more illegal screens than any team I've ever coached. We travel with the ball. Some of that is our freshmen tend to travel more than anybody else. You look at the last game, and Bella had 5 turnovers and Bugs had 4. But a lot of those were dead ball turnovers, not all. And so, I just think that's some of it. I think they're a team because they don't have that traditional point guard that breaks you down. If they go Weitenheimer, they have someone that's going to take care of the ball but doesn't really give them a scoring threat. Then if they go to Bryn Gerlich, she's really more of an off-the-ball player that you can get under and pressure. But, you want her on the floor because sometimes when they want their 5 best offensive players, now they really don't play a traditional point guard. So I think it's that more than anything. Why they may turn the ball over because they aren't maybe the most athletic team in the league. And so when they get pressured, they're probably more apt to turn it over.
Coach, I asked Caitlin this. She said it doesn't really feel all that different, but even for you, when last year you were in the position where you were pushing for Big 12 regular season championship with a couple games left, and you kind of within at the standings and games and all that. Does it feel a little bit different when maybe you've got 3 games and you kind of know, okay, we're gonna be around this seed in Kansas City? And
Here's the thing. Like, it's hard for me to know more than one game out who we even play. When you get in the weeds of the season, all you're looking at is the game in front of you and maybe the one after that. And I think I've said it before, like the only reason I have to look ahead is to make sure my dog has a place to go when we go on the road. Other than that, I mean, I don't think the focus is different, like from how we prepare for games and what our expectation is. I certainly think, I wasn't overly concerned about watching the top 16 reveal last night. Where a year ago we were sitting on the edge of that 1-2. We also were playing unbelievably good basketball at this time a year ago. Like, honestly, I felt like we were playing Final Four basketball. And we had started to deal with Sarah's injury, and that was our biggest challenge yet last year was, she wasn't practicing. And so I think that caught up with us, to be honest. But, I mean, we were playing really good basketball, but how we approached practice wasn't any different. How we approached games wasn't any different. I know that from a travel perspective, are we playing on the first day? Are we not playing on the first? I mean, I think there are things in play relative to the Big 12 tournament, but I'm just really, really focused on beating Texas Tech, getting some momentum, because then we get to turn around and play, 48 hours later on the road at Texas. And I know Vic is going to donate $1 for every person in the building. So I know they're trying to push for a really big crowd on Monday, which is awesome. So like that kind of is where we're at. I haven't looked at what our potential, I think Aaron for us, who's our video coordinator, is starting to think, is there anyone we won't match up with? Like to start to think about how we plan from a scouting perspective and things like that, but not on the day-to-day, you're just trying to watch as much Texas Tech film as you can and prepare your team to beat Texas Tech. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we finished last year against Texas Tech, and it was to clinch the championship outright. And I certainly think when it's senior day and all those things, there was a lot in play there. But I think right now it's just about how do we gain momentum going into the Big 12 tournament to give ourselves the best chance to win it. And I think every team in our league has a chance to go win that thing. So I think it's about, getting yourself in the right mental state, being as healthy as you can, and so that you can. And then you take away any doubt of what, people may think.
You mentioned Texas Tech and Texas. I'm just curious about this. What did Texas Tech do well to beat Texas when they won that game? How did they do that?
I thought they did a good job playing downhill and getting to the foul line. They went to the foul line a ton. It's something that they're good in general, but I thought against them they did a good job breaking their press. I mean, ironically, Texas went away from some of their full court press, not just in that game, but since. The last time we played Texas, we prepared for their press, and they didn't press us a single possession. So, Scott was really, really good. And then they just did a good job in their zone, being disruptive in their zone, finding the shooters. I mean, Texas's loss. I mean, Texas was at full strength that game. When they lost at Iowa State, they didn't have Morris. And Iowa State did a good job in their zone. But it's a little easier when you have one less shooter to find on the perimeter and can really congest the paint a little bit more. So I don't know. I have no idea what her timeline for return is, but I just thought they never backed down. And Breamber played for Vic, so at Mississippi State. I think that was. She was probably personally motivated too, but she's had a great season, so it's not like that was a one-game type of thing. I mean, she's been good in all their games. She was good against us. She just wasn't efficient, And so when you have to take 22 shots to get your points, that's different than some of her games where she's been really, really efficient. And she's just always going to get to the foul line. She puts a lot of pressure on the officials because she creates a lot of contact, whether they're going to let it go or not. You're welcome.